morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the Global Business Insight Podcast.
Hi everyone and welcome to another episode, and today we're embarking on a deep dive into one of the most significant developments in the intersection of artificial intelligence, data economics and supply chain management. So on our last episode we were looking at the groundbreaking Kumar-deBrabandt AI Data Economy Model. That's for AI democratization and monetization. We went quite far into that on our last episode, but that was really just around all the different elements of the model and what they mean. So we're looking at the Kumar-deBrabandt AI Data Economy Model as a holistic blueprint for building, scaling and monetizing AI responsibly, integrating autonomous intelligence, generative innovation, inclusive adoption and sustainable revenue into one cohesive ecosystem. At the heart of the model is ethical AI, and this is the guiding principle ensuring every action around AI and data is transparent, responsible and aligned with societal and organizational values. So ethical considerations play a central role in the discussion about the use of data and AI. Ethics means defining principles that serve as a guideline for moral action. In the context of data value and creation and AI, we therefore need to address issues such as justice, fairness, responsibility, and transparency.
Thank you, Max, for that great introduction. But now I wanted to just dig a little bit more deeper into what you just mentioned, justice and fairness and responsibility and transparency, just because it's so relevant for ethical AI. So when using data and AI, it must be ensured that there is absolutely no possibility for discrimination. AI systems are based on data and can reproduce and reinforce unintentional prejudice if the data has been distorted or is incomplete sometimes. And therefore, the systems must be designed in such a way that this is not possible. Now, let me go into the second one, responsibility. So just to explain that a little bit more, in this context, responsibility actually means that all parties involved who collect, process, or even use data can justify their actions and can also be held responsible for the consequences in the event of non-compliance. So in practice, this means that companies, governments, or organizations, they must implement transparent processes that then clearly explain how data is used and what decisions are based on it. And then thirdly, we have transparency. And just to describe that part, data users must be informed about how their data is used and which algorithms lead to which decisions. So this is the only way to build trust in AI systems. And the whole use of data, it must also be made clear how and on what basis these complex AI models then operate. So I hope this gives a little bit more just a better idea on these three elements: justice and fairness, responsibility, and transparency.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Charlotte. I think that's given us a lot more information into how the model needs to work, and the fact that you guys are thinking deeply about the whole use of AI, I think is entirely groundbreaking. So it's great to have that insight with you guys on board on the sessions. Milan, if I could put a question over to you, please. So how can you tell me a bit more how organizations can implement ethical AI and how they put those governance structures in place that actually balance automation and efficiency, which is what everyone wants, but actually embed some of that human oversight into the procurement decision that's made as well, so that ethical governance is built into the decision-making process?
So when we talk about the ethical AI, and as you have seen in the Kumar-deBrabandt AI data economy model, this is the center of everything that we do in and around AI. And I cannot imagine that we can do any AI in an organization without considering the ethical part. We can do it, but again, that particular topic is definitely cannot scale at a bigger level. So when we talk about implementing the ethical AI governance, say in procurement, This definitely requires a sophisticated organizational structure which should support it. And that embeds the ethical consideration at every level of AI decision making while maintaining the operational efficiency. This balance demands a governance framework that are proactive rather than reactive, built into AI system architecture rather than imposed as external constraints. When we talk about the ethical AI governance, so there needs to be an executive level ethical oversight, which begins with establishing in that particular organization a chief AI ethics officer, or probably it could be also an ethics committee. And they have the real authority over AI procurement implementation. These roles must have sufficient technical understanding so that they can evaluate the AI systems and their behavior, which is sufficient for business authority to halt or as well as to modify AI operation when ethical concerns arises. And as we know, the procurement topic is always where there needs to be a proper view, because that also leads to in many of the organization in and around a lot of governance failure. So we need to ensure that this is also setting, and it should be able to explain the way in which AI was developed. So unlike any traditional compliance role, this position requires a deep integration into both procurement strategy as well as the AI development processes. When we talk about the operational ethics integration, so this involves embedding the ethical decision making into the AI agent programming through what we call ethical guardrails. These aren't simple rule-based constraint, but it could be a very sophisticated evaluation framework that enable the AI agents to weigh ethical implementation into a real time. For instance, a AI agent evaluating a suppliers might automatically consider the impact of sourcing decision on local economies, suppliers diversity, long-term market competition, not just immediately the cost optimization. And here, again, the human and AI collaboration model, which establish or we need to ensure and establish it with a clear protocol for when the AI agent should seek human input and how humans can effectively intervene in AI decision-making process. So this is definitely not a complete autonomous process, but there needs to be a right collaboration between the human and AI to make it more successful as well as scalable. And this also includes creating a escalation trigger, which is based on the ethical complexity, stakeholder impact, or the novel situations that fall outside the AI training parameters. The governance framework must define how quickly humans can intervene, what information AI system must provide to support human decision making, and how to maintain the decision continuity when human oversight is required. So continuously ethical monitoring system tracks the AI decision pattern to identify the emerging ethical concerns before they become a systemic problem. This also involves the sophisticated analytics that can detect when AI system consistently favor certain supplier categories or identify patterns that might disadvantage a specific group or recognize when optimization algorithms are created uh, unintended to the market concentration effort. So overall, governance is one of the key pillars when we would like to establish the ethical AI framework within the procurement or at large in any of the bigger organizations.
Thanks, Milan. Again, incredible amount of detail there. Thank you so much for going into that level of depth for our listeners to really get into the explanation behind the model. Charlotte, I'm going to ask you a question now on this.
Yeah.
So could you get into a bit of detail for me, please, on what strategies you think organizations should employ to address that accountability within using algorithms, and how they explain away how they use that to evaluate suppliers and select those suppliers within procurement?
Yeah, sure. What a great question, especially for supplier selection, evaluation, but also algorithmic accountability and explainability in this whole supplier evaluation. I think it requires just comprehensive strategies that make AI decision making very transparent, especially now that we are dealing with unforeseen decisions that are coming. And it's important to also try to make it understandable to all stakeholders while maintaining our competitive advantage and operational efficiency. So these strategies just must address technical, legal, and business requirements all simultaneously. Explainable AI architecture, as you said, forms the foundation of implementing AI systems that can then articulate their decision-making logic in business terms rather than technical jargon. So this involves using machine learning models, for example, that can then explain why specific suppliers were ranked highly or poorly, what factors must be involved to influence certain selection decisions, which criteria, and how different scenarios then may also change the outcomes. So let me give you an example, Max. When an AI system is selected and or when an AI system selects a supplier, it should explain that the decision was based 40% on cost competitiveness, 25%, for example, on delivery reliability, 20% on innovation capability, and then you have, let's say, the rest 15% on having a sustainability matrix with specific details about how each factor then was assessed. So this is kind of the best scenario. Then we have decision audit trails, and they create just a comprehensive documentation of AI decision-making processes that then enable retrospective analysis and accountability assessments. So every AI-driven supplier evaluation should generate detailed records showing what data was actually considered and how it was weighed, and what alternative options were evaluated and what factors determined the final recommendation. So these audit trails must be then accessible to our internal stakeholders or to our external auditors or even potential suppliers themselves when transparency is required. But then we also have the multi-stakeholder review processes, and that really involves having a diverse group in evaluating our AI decision-making logic and the outcomes to then identify potential blind spots or bias patterns that we have. And this is actually really interesting because this includes procurement professionals, and then we have supplier diversity advocates, for example, or legal counsels and supplier maybe representatives. And they are reviewing, they're all reviewing that AI evaluation criteria and decision pattern. So regular review sessions would then help to identify when AI logic diverges from the organizational value or also creates unintended consequences. And then we have so 2 more points. Then we have the real-time explainability services, and they provide immediate clarification of AI decisions to suppliers and internal stakeholders, if you want to call it. So when a supplier receives an evaluation score or selection decision, they should be able to access detailed explanations, of course, of evaluation factors or also improvement opportunities and comparative analysis that then shows how their performance relates to other suppliers. And this transparency ultimately builds trust and enables continuous improvement. And then lastly, we also have the algorithmic impact assessments. Systematically, they are a great tool to evaluate how AI systems then affect different supplier categories or geographic regions. Or also, we've realized patterns in business types. So these assessments, they then identify where AI optimization is actually creating systematic advantages or disadvantages for these specific groups, and then provide certain recommendations for algorithmic adjustments that then maintain fairness, while also achieving our business objectives or KPIs. So that kind of explains the decision making.
It certainly does. Thank you very much, Charlotte. That's brilliant. And again, some really great deep insight there into how the model works across multiple levels. I think last question for this particular episode, back to you, Milan, then. So how do organizations balance AI-driven efficiency gains with social responsibility and supplier welfare considerations? Quite a lot to manage. So how does the model cater for all of those at the same time?
Again, a very good question, because everything that we do, it's linked to our overall responsibility towards the society. And beyond that, when we talk about in the procurement, it is also about the suppliers' welfare consideration. So balancing the AI efficiency gain with the social responsibility, this again requires a sophisticated value framework, which recognize a long-term sustainability depend on the supplier ecosystem and the overall social impact, and not just immediately focusing on the cost optimization. And this is a trap, because in most of the AI deployment, the focus is always remaining that how we can optimize the cost. Definitely, cost optimization is one of the key, but we need to think holistically when it comes to our responsibility also towards the society as well as the supplier. Then for this one, the organizations must develop a business model that views supplier welfare as well as the competitive advantage, rather than only focusing on the cost constraint. The holistic value optimization, which replaces the narrow cost-focused metrics with comprehensive value model that incorporate social, environmental, as well as the economic factors. So the AI systems must be trained to optimize for total stakeholder value, which includes supplier financial health, the community economic impact, and the long-term relationship sustainability alongside the traditional cost and the quality metrics. But again, easy said than done, because this also requires developing a complete new performance indicator that can quantify the social responsibility outcome and incorporating these metrics into the AI decision-making algorithm. So the supply development investment represents a critical balance point where organizations invest into the AI generated efficiency gain back into the supplier capability building. Because again, when we talk about the supplier, these are the partners which are for any of the organization. So we need to also think holistically to build the supplier capability, not just focusing or enforcing the AI related topic to them. So when we talk also about the AI optimization to reduce the procurement cost, organizations can reinvest saving into the supplier training programs, technology upgrade, as well as the capacity building initiatives that strengthen the entire supply chain ecosystem. The AI systems can identify which suppliers would benefit most from the development investment and predict the long-term return on supplier development activities. So then when we talk about the share value creation models, which is aligned with the efficiency gain with the supplier prosperity through the innovative contract structure, this also ensures the benefit from the AI-driven improvement for not only the supplier, but we as an organization. This also might include the gain sharing agreement where suppliers receive portion of AI generated savings, which is for the as a kind of collaboration premium, which compensates supplier for participating in the AI powered improvement initiative, or the innovation partnership, which create shared IP from IP or intellectual property from the AI enhanced development project. And just to summarize, the overall community impact assessment involving the AI analytics to understand how procurement decisions affect local economies, employment level, and community development. So we need to think again holistically. So the organizations can use the AI to model the broader social implications of sourcing decision and develop strategies that achieve efficiency goal while supporting the overall community prosperity.
Milan, Charlotte, thank you so much for today's episode. Again, some brilliant insight into a slightly deeper topic than our first episode, where we've gone further into the ethics of AI and within the model you've created. Looking forward to the next episode. Do you want to give us any insights into what the next episode might be for our listeners before we sign off?
Absolutely. Firstly, Max, thank you again for having us. I really appreciate it. And the next episode will be all about agentic AI. So to our listeners, stay tuned, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.